There is only one ICO that I've ever taken part in, and that was the Tezos crowd sale back in 2017. Of course, as fellow early-stage Tezos investors can attest, there have been numerous ups and downs on the project's long road to that mainnet launch. However, since that launch, things appear to have accelerated at breakneck pace. Yet, is this all a bit overhyped, and is there still price potential? My name is Guy, and this is exactly what I will cover in this video. Not only will I take a look at some of the most important Tezos developments, but I'll also examine the economics of XTZ and what it could mean for all us holders. I also have a personal XTZ price prediction, so be sure to stick around for that. Quick few things, chaps. Yep, the boring stuff. Not a financial advisor, a YouTuber who enjoys making videos for folks like you. Please only consider this as educational. And if you're new to the channel, welcome to the Bureau. I cover Tezos and a number of other altcoins regularly. So, if you want to get plugged in, hit up that subscribe button and ping that bell. Get them while they're hot. Alrighty then, enough fluff. Let's tango with Tezos. Now, for some people that are still new to Tezos, you will no doubt want a bit of an overview. If you're already fully clued up on the project, then feel free to jump ahead with the timestamps given below. So, let's start with a bit of a rundown of what Tezos is and what makes it unique. Firstly, it's a self-amending blockchain with on-chain governance. This basically means that there are a protocol of defined measures to adjust to any development disagreements and still upgrade the blockchain. So, no destructive chain splits. The Tezos blockchain also supports smart contracts. This means that it's programmable and decentralized applications can be built on top of it, much like Ethereum, EOS, Neo, etc. However, something that's unique about the Tezos contracts is the programming language that they use. We'll cover this more in a bit. It's also important to point out that Tezos was built from the ground up, and it was not launched on any other platform. This is what makes it quite different from the likes of the sea of other Ethereum-based ICOs. This blockchain that Tezos built uses a unique proof-of-stake algorithm called liquid proof-of-stake, LPOS. This is analogous to delegated proof-of-stake, DPoS, except with a few key differences. With DPoS, election of a fixed number of block producers is required in order to maintain consensus on the network. However, with LPoS, this is optional. People can stake themselves, or they can delegate to someone else. At its base level, the LPoS mechanism is based on the concept of liquid democracy. I won't bore you with all the details here, but I have linked to some handy resources below that you should take a look at if you're interested. Now, given that this is a proof-of-stake consensus, blocks are added to the network by bakers. And no, I'm not talking about Nana's cookies. I'm talking about those nodes that uphold the security of the network. Sorry, Gran. Bakers get block publishing rights based on their stake. You can either bake yourself or you can delegate someone else to bake on your behalf. I will touch on all this in a bit. Anyways, that is the technical overview of Tezos. When it comes to the Tezos backstory and ICO, it's pretty well publicized. If you want more info on that, be sure to check out my previous video. However, the most important thing we are no doubt interested in is the economics behind the protocol. This does, after all, have an impact on the price. Price is largely determined by a balance of demand and supply of a said asset. These demand and supply factors can come from a number of different sources. These often are also intertwined and impact on each other in various ways. I'm going to break down each of these so that hopefully you can come to your own conclusions as to how you see the market playing out. Let's start with supply, shall we? The first and most important thing to point out is that Tezos does not have a max supply. In fact, there is about a 5.5% yearly inflation on the protocol. I know, many in the crypto community clutch their pearls at this revelation. I too was quite skeptical of this initially. Surely, if there's no supply cap, the coin itself will be diluted in time. Well, yes, it will. But this does not really imply that the asset today is not highly valuable. This is down to something called the convenience yield, which is inherent in cryptocurrency and certain other assets. The benefit of holding an asset now versus getting it in the future. This is actually pretty well laid out in a piece written up by Arthur Brightman, the Tezos co-founder. I've linked to it below, but in it he argues how a currency with inherent inflation could still have a finite effective supply. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but the best example I can think of is this. Some chap offers you $100 now to stash in your piggy bank, or they promise to give you $110 in 1 year's time. Which offer would you take? I think many would go for the $100. This is indeed slightly perplexing given that the US rate of inflation is far below 10%. Mathematically, it's suboptimal. Yet people place a premium on that convenience yield, an old variant on those birds in the bushes. You also have to consider that with a proof-of-stake system, validators have to be rewarded for upholding the network and propagating those blocks. This is the block reward that drives that inflation. Therefore, if you're taking part in the ecosystem and earning staking returns, then the impact of any dilution is irrelevant. This has an interesting side effect in that it encourages participation on the network. People won't just hodl their Tezos, but they will also stake it in order to earn those returns. So by encouraging people to actually stake their Tezos and not just hodl them, the network is generally more secure. Think about Bitcoin, for example. How many people actually take part in upholding the broader security on it? Most just hodl their Bitcoin and hope that those miners keep it secure. Oh, and by the way, what do you think happens to the Bitcoin fee market when that 21 million cap is reached? Miners can't earn any more block rewards, so the only other way that they have an incentive to keep propagating blocks is through the remaining fee market. Indeed, some may not even be bothered with the fees and stop mining altogether. This then brings up concerns for security. So, the Tezos inflation cannot only be eliminated by staking your XTZ, but it could also lead to a more secure blockchain in the future. Oh, and by the way, if you're not staking your Tezos, then why the hell not? It's so super simple. I actually have a handy guide that takes you through the steps, which you can watch right over here. Anyways, that was a long-winded way of me saying that protocol inflation does not imply that an asset should automatically be less valuable. Yet, if the Tezos community doesn't like it, they can always vote on proposals to cap it. Gotta love on-chain governance. Now, the main benefit of this staking on Tezos is that it means more funds are locked up earning returns and less is circulating on the exchange order books. In total, about 80% of the circulating XTZ is staked. Less supply with a constant demand means an increasing price, holding all other factors equal. However, you also have to consider demand for Tezos. The first component comes from those people who are buying Tezos in order to stake it, the investors. And when it comes to this demand, it's quite clear that there is a lot of interest in the cryptocurrency. Tezos is well supported on a plethora of exchanges. Its market cap has risen considerably over the past year. Strong volumes, liquidity, and broad asset pairings for both fiat and cryptocurrency. It's also on Coinbase Pro with some pretty strong volumes. It is well known that Coinbase is the retail investor's gateway to the crypto space. In fact, according to a recent blog post at Coinbase, Tezos had more trading volume when adjusted for market cap than all of the other assets listed. The only one that came a close second was Chainlink's Link, which, if you haven't seen my previous video, I'm also quite bullish on. You also have to consider that institutional staking demand is picking up. For example, last year, Coinbase Custody gave its clients the opportunity to stake their sizable XTZ holdings. More recently, Bitcoin Suisse announced that they were offering their institutional investors Tezos staking services at their PwC-audited high-security vault. Anyways, all of this interest implies that demand is increasing among investors to buy Tezos. Not only that, but because exchanges offer staking services, these buyers are now also staking their XTZ and banking those returns. Less supply, more demand, price increases. There is, of course, another really important demand driver for Tezos, and this is network demand. More specifically, Tezos, like Ethereum and other smart contract blockchains, requires gas in order to run applications and complete computations. The more use there is on the network, the more demand there will be for XTZ to pay for these gas costs. Tezos appears to have a healthy hive of developer activity taking place on its blockchain. I encourage you to take a look at this site, which documents all of the projects that have been built on the Tezos blockchain. In 2019, over 1,300 new developers learned to code Tezos smart contracts. Many of them have since built dApps using Tezos' higher-level smart contract programming language. For those that don't know, Tezos uses a unique programming language called Michelson. While this is not as well known as other smart contract languages, it can be more secure, given that it supports formal verification. Anyways, this isn't a programming video. I've linked to the Michelson docs below if you're interested. Now, it's not just the developer community that is using the Tezos blockchain with vigor. There are a number of platforms that want to use the blockchain for STO issuance. There is about $2.6 billion worth of STOs that have been announced to be conducted on the Tezos blockchain. I won't go over them all here, but some of the most interesting are T0 and Alliance Investments will tokenize $643 million worth of STOs on the River Plaza development in the UK. BTG Pactual plans to issue up to $1 billion in STOs on the Tezos blockchain. They actually just recently released their REIT-BZ token on the blockchain. Elevate Returns and Securitize plans to issue up to $1 billion worth of real estate STOs on the Tezos blockchain. This is the same group that tokenized the St. Regis Aspen Hotel on Ethereum, by the way. And there are a host more which you can read about in this handy blog post that I've linked to below. So why am I telling you all of this? Well, it all shows that the Tezos blockchain is really active. Activity means more demand for XTZ to pay gas fees. More demand generally leads to higher prices, holding all else equal. But as I've shown before, all things are not equal. You have investor and staking demand keen to get their hands on XTZ. These factors help to increase the price of XTZ. And as the price of XTZ increases, so too does the demand to buy and stake Tezos among retail investors. You can see how these things tend to feed on themselves, right? Okay, so that is the raw tokenomics of Tezos. But there are a number of other reasons as to why I'm bullish on it, so let's take a quick look at some of those. The first of these is perhaps the Tezos Foundation. This is the Swiss-based non-profit that is tasked with utilizing the Tezos ICO funds that were raised back in 2017. And speaking of funds, they're sitting on a pretty sizable stash of digital gold. For those that don't know, the Tezos ICO was one of the largest in history, and this was completed at a time when Bitcoin and Ethereum were worth much less. The foundation is also sitting on quite a large stash of XTZ, which we all know has appreciated in price. According to the Tezos Foundation biannual report, in January of this year, they were sitting on over $635 million in combined funds. That's like a mini crypto hedge fund. Anyways, you may be wondering what this means for you. And the answer is a lot. The foundation is tasked not only with forming key partnerships like those mentioned above, but they're also issuing grants to developers and community members. It's actually a pretty expansive list of grants that have gone out, and I can't go over them all here. But this is great for the Tezos network as a whole. This helps foster development and project awareness, which will eventually lead to broad adoption. And that's really the holy grail we're all after. Now, speaking of ICOs, it's well known that the Tezos one was not completely free of drama. Not long after it was completed, there were a bunch of US investors who decided to initiate a class action lawsuit. The crux of the argument was similar to the line taken in other similar lawsuits. They alleged that the Tezos ICO was a security sale and hence breached SEC rules on them. Long story short, this dragged on for over 2 years, and Tezos finally agreed to settle the case in March of this year. They agreed to pay $25 million, which would see them freed of the legal hassle lawsuits usually bring. So that is great to see. Now, of course, this does still leave the dreaded security question in the open air. Yet the settlement does, in my view, make it less likely for the SEC to build a case against the foundation. For one, the settlement shows that Tezos has not acted in bad faith when it comes to the lawsuit. I also think that the SEC has many more worthy targets in the plethora of other vaporware ICOs and outright scams of 2017. And speaking of the SEC, Tezos is part of the Proof of Stake Alliance, and they recently met with the SEC. This was to discuss how certain blockchains could work within the regulatory framework offered by security laws. For example, the Alliance shared recommendations with the SEC about how staking returns are viewed by market participants and why this differs from traditional security instruments. Anyways, Tezos' participation in all of this is further proof that they're acting in good faith. It's considerably different to the actions taken against the likes of Telegram and their TON token. The latter was initially quite dismissive and is probably the reason that the SEC did not relent. Moving away from regulation and lawsuits for a bit, I want to come back to that all-important on-chain governance feature. Tezos has already been through a number of upgrades through the use of this process. The most recent of these was the Carthage upgrade, which was activated in March of this year. There were a number of improvements that were brought on by Carthage, but perhaps one of the most relevant was the increase in the gas limit. This means that the network will have the ability to execute more smart contracts. And with more smart contract functionality, we have more developers building more dApps on a faster network. More gas use and more demand for XTZ. Anyways, I digress. Something else that was really quite special about this upgrade was the amount of governance participation in the protocol upgrade. In the exploration and promotion phases of the upgrade, 74% and 72% of total XTZ participated. In fact, if we take a look back to the Babylon upgrade that took place in October of last year, you had over 80% participation for both the exploration and promotion phases of the voting process. This is great to see, as not only does it show that Tezos governance is working as intended, but it also points to the broader enthusiasm and engagement of the staking community. This is all great for the future evolution of the Tezos blockchain, all in the hands of those who have a stake in it. Now, that's it for most of this video. Honestly, there is so much more that I could have covered on the project. There really is a lot out there. Nevertheless, it's time to leave you with some of my personal thoughts on Tezos. Now, when I invested in the ICO back in 2017, I knew that Tezos was compelling. This was about the same time that Bitcoin was going through all that SegWit infighting and its subsequent turbulence. Of course, the subsequent Tezos Foundation infighting and potential lawsuit did weigh on my assertions. There was a brief moment in which I wondered whether we would ever see Tezos come to fruition. Well, fast forward to today and I can say that I've been pleasantly surprised. The project is expanding at a rapid pace with the ecosystem and community growing just as quickly. There's no doubt that launching with a completely new blockchain and protocol has been a boon for the network. Its unique proof-of-stake consensus method, together with that Mitchelson language, has made it not only highly scalable, but also decentralized and secure. That right there is the blockchain trifecta. Add to that the fact that the governance component has been working as intended. Updates have been voted on by community consensus. Anyone can propose an upgrade and have it judged by the community. And while some may scoff at the ICO funding model, one can't discount the value that the foundation is providing to the ecosystem. Buckets of sats ready to be deployed in the right direction. This is all done in a completely transparent fashion for all to see. So yes, I am more bullish on Tezos now than I was when I first bought in. Today, it makes up about 13% of my altcoin portfolio, together with Link and a few others. Now, I'm sure that you're interested in my XTZ price prediction. Well, by this time next year, I will be very surprised if it is still below $10. Fundamentally, the current trajectory warrants it. It could even come sooner if institutional investors start lapping up XTZ as they have with ETH and Bitcoin. Of course, this is assuming no black swan event crops up. But, well, we haven't seen any of those recently now, have we? And that is it, my fellow Tezos fans. My video on why I am an XTZ bull. Anyways, what do you guys think? Any other Tezos fans care to opine? Or anyone who doesn't share my view? I'm keen to have my investment thesis tested, so I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And of course, if you found this video helpful, then help support this channel. Smash up that like button and drop me a sub. I have more Tezos content just around the corner. Thanks for making it to the end of that video. As one of my loyal viewers, I have something very important to share with you. Have you heard of my weekly newsletter? It's basically a compilation of all the interesting content that may have flown under your radar. News, reviews, analysis, and hot market tips. Want to be a part? Well, don't delay. Just scoot on over to the description where you'll find a link to my sign-up form. There you can enter your email address. Hit submit and hey presto, you are a Coin Bureau insider. My next newsletter is being cooked up as we speak, one you won't want to miss. See you next time, chaps.